Right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Andrew Wright. I am the Chief of External Affairs and Strategic Initiatives at DRPT. Just some ground rules before we get started. We just ask that everyone please make sure your mic is muted and that your camera is turned off. That will just help with bandwidth issues. We're expecting a big crowd here tonight. And so before we get started, let's just walk through the agenda of tonight's meeting. So next slide, please. First, we will start with just a little bit about who DRPT is. We will then jump into our FY27, FY32 six-year improvement program. And we'll provide an overview of our public transportation program and then our rail program. And then we will conclude the meeting with comments from the public. And I will provide some more detail about some ground rules for that when we get to that point. But first, a little bit about DRPT. So next slide, please.
I'm so sorry.
At this time, I would like to introduce our director at DRPT. Maria Zimmerman joined DRPT back in January. She was appointed by Governor Spanberger. Maria has an extensive background in the transit and rail industry, both in the private and the public sector. In the private sector, she managed her own consulting firm. And in the public sector, she's worked for members of Congress, as well as working in the Biden US DOT under Secretary Buttigieg in advancing the IIJA. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Maria.
Great. Thanks, Andy. Welcome, everybody. We really appreciate you joining us here this evening as we walk through some of the highlights of the investments that we're proposing as a Commonwealth to be making in the next fiscal year. I want to thank Andy and Miriam and Jordan on our staff who worked really hard to set up tonight's virtual hearing, and you'll hear from others on our team. So in working on this project, really thanks go across the entire agency as we work to pull this together. Thank you also on behalf of our Secretary and Governor Spanberger again for joining us tonight. We just completed the Secretary Donahue, VDOT Commissioner Britch and myself with members of the Commonwealth Transportation Board going around to all 9 of the VDOT districts over the last 6 weeks to talk about what is proposed for the 6-year improvement program. And so it was great to get out in the state and meet folks. You just saw the video about DRPT. But just really quickly about us, we are a separate agency, separate from VDOT. We were created in 1992. We work very closely with our partners at VDOT. Every transit bus runs on a VDOT or local city road. So those partnerships with our local, regional, and other state agencies are really essential. As you'll hear tonight, we are responsible for managing and overseeing significant state funding and also some federal funding that goes to over 40 transit operators across the state, including WMATA and the Virginia Railway Express. And so you'll be hearing a little bit more about that. DRPT, we also are responsible and fund different statewide planning studies that are underway and other rail studies as well as providing technical assistance resources, both on the freight rail and on the transit side of things. So next slide, please. I should also mention we are a small but mighty team, and again, really value the partnerships with many of you who are on the call here tonight. We saw in the video as well, really kind of some of the stats about the investments that we're making and the value that they serve to the Commonwealth. I always think it's useful to remind folks, yes, we have a lot of traffic congestion in Virginia, but it would be a lot worse if we didn't have over 150 million trips happening just this past year on our public transit systems across the Commonwealth. Our freight program helps to divert 11 million trucks just in 1 year were diverted through our freight rail program, and over $1.6 billion of investments that are supporting that. Excuse me, over $2.1 billion in economic value that's happening as a result of that. We also are excited to fund and support the operation of the Virginia Breeze, which is an inner city bus last year carrying 68,000 Virginians across the Commonwealth. We just opened a new route on the Virginia Breeze last month that now connects Virginia Beach to the Shenandoah Valley. So we encourage folks to check that out and look this summer with Virginia 250 and the 250th anniversary of our nation. The Virginia Breeze is a great way to get to historic places, and we're going to have some exciting fare deals coming out this summer, so keep your eyes open for that. But again, just really significant value, whether you ride transit or you don't take transit, whether you're a shipper shipping goods on rail or you're a passenger riding Amtrak or the Breeze, we really are part of the broader Commonwealth system, creating economic value, helping to reduce congestion, and providing air quality benefits. So next slide, please. Last but not least, wanted to just kind of give some of the overarching goals that really drive the investments that you'll hear about tonight. Our goals both through this coming year as well as for this administration that are reflected in the 6-year improvement plan include first and foremost to really maintain a state of good repair and to preserve critical infrastructure, both on our public transportation systems, but also on our freight rail systems. And you'll see that reflected in some of the capital investments that are being supported on both sides, as well as some of the rail preservation funds. So really critical, and we see rising capital costs that sometimes can make that a challenge to ensure we are meeting state of good repair goals. We also have a goal around continuing to build transit ridership and revenues. As mentioned, 154 million trips taken last year. We've seen over 136% increase in transit ridership just over the last 4 years on almost every part of the state that growth has been happening. And so we see these investments to provide operating support to continue that through some of our ridership incentive programs, through some of those capital investments, through some of the new pilot and special demonstration projects you'll hear about. We're also investing to create a route map for the future, and you'll hear about this in our work on the statewide transit plan that will be kicking off later this year to really look at how can we transform and again understand the value of transit across the state, but also work that's underway with updating the Virginia statewide rail plan. As mentioned, we're also funding innovative solutions, and you'll hear about that again, some of the projects through things like TRIP and merit special programs that help to really think about using new technologies, new ways to think about system redesign, new types of vehicles, all kinds of things to really make the customer experience a quality one, to improve safety on our systems, and to really get some of those efficiencies around transit. And last but not least, we're committed at DRPT to ensuring that we have a sustainable, well-managed organization. We take it really seriously, our responsibility to be stewards of the public taxpayer funds and to ensure we are making good, transparent investments that are improving rail and public transportation across the Commonwealth. So with that, I'll turn it back to the team to get into the details of why we're all here tonight.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Deanna Owari. I am the Chief Financial Officer for DRPT, and just wanted to walk you through some key steps in that the agency took in developing the 6-year program. The period covers fiscal year 27 through fiscal year 32. And so we began our process by accepting applications on December 1 of 2025. And applicants or grantees had until February 1st of 26 to submit their materials through web grants. And then between February and March, our DRPT staff evaluated all of the applications and developed recommendations for funding. On April 20th, we presented the draft 6-year program to the Commonwealth Transportation Board, and that then kicked off the initial public comment period that opened up and ends actually today with this virtual public hearing. And we, had those meetings obviously to develop feedback across the Commonwealth on the program. And so what comes next is that we will present the final SIP to the Commonwealth Transportation Board on June 17th. They will review it and take steps to adopt the final SIP. And then for the projects that are included in the final SIP, those projects will kick off on July 1st with the new state fiscal year. Next slide, please. Okay. So DRPT has an open data portal and it's available at this link here, but this link provides the public with full access to our interactive 6-year improvement program. So I think in 2024 was the first year that we developed the portal. Prior to that, our SIP was part of an Excel file and a PDF, very static document, but this portal, open data portal, provides interactive opportunities for the public to look at the projects that were awarded for funding. The portal also houses a wide range of key resources, including our performance measures, such as transit ridership and truckloads that have been diverted from highways. There's smart scale information, a robust library of GIS data, and our agency's strategic plan. And so we do encourage everyone to explore the portal to better understand our programs, our performance measures, and the ongoing investments that we're making across the Commonwealth. Next slide, please. Okay, so what's included in the FY2732 SIP? At a very high level, we are investing $7.37 billion over the next 6 years into public transportation and rail access across the Commonwealth. And the first year alone, DRPT is investing $977 million to support our transit and rail projects. And I just wanted to highlight, there could be a few changes between now and the final adoption of the SIP. There may be changes in how projects are funded. We might shift some funding around from one source to another. There could be some last minute changes between VDOT and MPOs. If DRPT or VDOT is supposed to administer a project, that may get switched in the final version of the SIP. And there could be changes, obviously. There's a big caveat because there could be additional funding or things that come about when the General Assembly and the governor pass the budget bill for the Commonwealth. Next slide, please. Okay. And finally, I'll just wrap up with a brief comparison of the fiscal 27 preliminary allocations and how they compared to last year's SIP. So you can see that for most of the major program areas, there's year-over-year growth. I will point out the places where there's negative decline or year-over-year decreases. One is the WMATA funding, and that's primarily due to general fund money that was included in last year's program, but so far not included in the 27 program. So that's a reduction there. And then the final thing is really not a reduction. It's more of a shifting of project on when they believe that that project will begin, but it's impacting the Virginia VPRA line where there's a decrease because there's a project that was originally scheduled to happen in 2027, but was pushed back into the 2028 fiscal year. And so that's why you're seeing a decline there. But overall, the Commonwealth Mass Transit Fund, the Rail Fund programs, there's growth across the board. And that concludes my part. I'm going to turn it over to Zach Trogdon, who will talk more specifically and in detail about the transit projects.
Thanks, Deanna. I think everybody can hear me okay, and thank you, Miriam. It's great to kind of see everybody. I saw a lot of colleagues and friends coming into the meeting. So if you're new here, look forward to also speaking with you. If you all have had a chance to take a look at the SIP yet, you may know some of these things, but we're going to get a little more detailed about what's in there on a program by program basis. So we start with our operating program. As you can see, we are recommending allocation of $138.8 million this year. So the operating revenues can be used for any operating expenses that you have at your agencies. And those of you that have been here for a while, we do allocate the operating assistance based on sizing metrics and performance data. So together, those are what we use to hand out the assistance on a somewhat objective basis using data that is submitted to us. And this year, the average operating allocation for folks is 23.2% of the certified operating expenses that we use to allocate the funds. So that is fiscal year 25 data, but as you can see, we do hope that this operating assistance is very valuable to your agency, especially in this time of such rising costs. So next slide, Miriam. So of course our Merit Capital program is also our next largest program, most important program. You can see this year we are recommending allocating $101 million. And as has been the case for a number of years now, our focus is on SGR projects, state of good repair projects, and we'll talk a little bit more about some specific projects in just a second. And then also minor enhancements, which are things that may not be as easily scored in terms of some of their useful lives as vehicles are, but also are things that we want to keep that help your agencies operate. Such as maintenance equipment and things like that. And then we also fund major expansions. You can see the amounts there. So that, and then we also have programmed some funds out over a number of years beyond fiscal year 27 for especially large projects that would not be possible if we had to fit everything into 1 year. And we also, in order to stretch our money, we'll talk about this again in a second, we have the ability to perhaps fund some capital projects out of the Transit Ridership Incentive Program as well that might otherwise be in capital. So that helps us to stretch our money a little more, which again is so valuable right now in this environment that things are so expensive. All right, Miriam, next slide. Thank you. So this is a little different. This is a little bit more detail on what has been funded through Merit Capital, and you can see that again, revenue. Vehicles are the largest, slice of what we do fund, which is really the focus of the program and is what is intended. So that takes up about 65% of the program itself. And again, you all are in the business of moving people, so we certainly feel this is appropriate and that we are really doing our job by making sure that you all have safe and well-maintained vehicles that are on the road. And then another 15% is some of those other things that also help you pursue your missions in your agency, such as technology, which is again becoming that much more important. And then of course the facilities that you use, make sure they're safe and welcoming for both your operators and the public and your employees. And then so you can see that we also funding some construction and some other types of things through the capital assistance programs. Miriam, next slide. This is just talked about SGR and minor enhancements, but this is the one major expansion project that we are recommending for funding this year. You can see that's recommended out over a number of years to help move this project forward. Miriam, we look at the next slide. So I just mentioned the TRIP program, and so you can see we're recommending this year $35 million of project awards out of that. And we do have 4 different types of projects that we fund out of TRIP. And regional routes being one of the largest, that can be things such as BRT projects. And so those are can be very expensive given the infrastructure cost of those. So that is something we're glad we have the ability to fund out of TRIP. And of course, passenger amenities, shelters, benches, transfer stations are another thing that we're very, very glad we can do out of this program and be able to fund some capital because those are so important to the public, your passengers, riders, and operators. So, and then of course, public safety is another thing that was added recently. And so, and then also there are some large projects in this, so we find it to be necessary to sometimes spread that out over multiple years and not just fund them all out of fiscal year 27. So you can see we're recommending some of that as well in this program. And so I talked about that. Thankfully, we have the ability to transfer some projects from Merit Capital over to TRIP, so we can stretch our money further. Miriam, next slide, please. Here's some representative projects from TRIP. You can see we do micro transit, and we also, which is one of the regional type of things that in Lynchburg, and then also fare free and reduced fare. City of Alexandria has a program that's being funded by TRIP for their public middle and high school students. And then on the infrastructure side, the Waynesboro, we're helping them fund some stops for the Bright service. And then on the security, public safety front, security cameras for a couple of agencies, OmniRide and Suffolk. Miriam, next slide. Thank you. So our special program, many of you may be familiar with the demonstration program that helps fund, new or innovative service, and as well as technical assistance, workforce development, and also this planning assistance that we provide to NPOs. So you can see we're recommending 19.6 million this year out of this pot, and so and then some of that's transferred to commuter assistance, which I'll talk about in a second. But on the next slide, we have some representative projects. Miriam, if you would go to the next slide. So in our demonstration, as you can see, a lot of agencies are looking for new service, which is great, and we're happy we have the resources to help to see if these new services are viable and can spread transit across many parts of the state. As you can see, we go all the way from a place like Arlington County down to Giles County. So that's DRPT in a nutshell, reaching out all across the Commonwealth to help people get where they need to be. Next slide. So then not just demonstration, but you can see technical assistance in many areas. They're looking at new service, studying the feasibility of service. And so, it's necessary to do that. And obviously, so you can be successful if you should decide to implement that service. So it's been a great tool for us, and we appreciate all the agencies that take advantage of our technical assistance program. And then also workforce development, of course, trying to fill what has been, a lot of people are retiring from the transit industry. And so it's great if we can get, a new generation to come in and get them trained up, because that's a lot of knowledge and experience that is leaving. So, all right, Miriam, next slide. So I mentioned the commuter assistance program. So those of you that have had the pleasure of working with Chris Arabia, our CAP program manager, he works very close with your agencies. And so so some standard types of projects here that we have from year to year. And so I think we, certainly, appreciate the partnership we have, the close partnership we have with every commuter assistance provider. And so that you come in for projects every year and work so closely with our staff to help move people through van pools, car pools, marketing, and all the valuable stuff that we do with this. So yeah, very valuable, very not the largest amount of money, but certainly we you do a lot of good with the money that we do put towards this program. So thank you. Miriam, next slide. So just something we've been talking about, and we've been very talking about actually a lot with our with the partners all across the Commonwealth and with the CTV as well, is that we do have a lot of new service and service that's being run in our rural areas, which is good because it fulfills a lot of needs. But it also the way that costs and expenses are increasing has certainly stretched the revenues that are coming in from the federal level, and so this is just demonstrating that. And so we've been a lot of conversations with our providers out there, and so as you can see, it's kind of been working out that our new revenues that are coming in, we're basically dedicating those all to operating cost, as you all had said would be the preference if we were to have to choose. And so we would still have some ability to fund capital in certain instances, but operating has been the preference when we're able to do so. So just showing you that this is still something we're keeping an eye on, and we appreciate all the feedback that we've gotten from our rural providers and working through this with us, and what you tell us about what's going to be the best way for us to face these challenges together. So Miriam, next slide. So also other federal money, Director Zimmerman mentioned before, just trying to make sure we effectively use these federal revenues that are given to us. So as I was just mentioned, the 5311 program. That also we've had some discretionary money come in as well that we were able to put towards capital. But we also get something called 5339 that goes towards our small urban providers. And so that is something they can tap into. Again, not the largest amount of money, but it is something that allows them to be able to do some necessary projects, infrastructure projects as well. And so we appreciate the partnership with them to take this federal money and really stretch it. Again, we have such a great partnership with our rurals and our small urban providers that try to use this money most effectively. So just another program that we're happy to work together on. Leveraging money, and that goes doubly for our 5310 program, which as you all know, I hope some of those agencies are on here today, but helps some of the neediest among us, the seniors, the disabilities that have some of the most needs to be able to get around, but may not have the ability to have a car or to drive. So this is a program that's definitely near and dear to many folks' hearts. And so again, stretching that money, working with every type of agency across the Commonwealth, every type of area. So we have 9.9 million recommended this year to put towards those needs. And you can see it goes towards all types of things, vehicles, some operating money. And, our agencies just work so hard to make sure every dollar that is used well to certainly help those that need the assistance. So, okay, Miriam, next slide. So then sort of to the other side is up in Northern Virginia, we which has a lot of congestion. I don't think that's a secret, but they've been very innovative in the toll and some of the tolling. This was talked about at the last CTV meeting, and it's been something that's contributed greatly to trying to ease congestion up there, is using the tolls on some of the interstates in order to ease congestion. And so it's been something that DRPT receives this toll money, and we're able to fund some projects with it. So we have at least 3 different ones now. One of them is I-95 high-speed toll lanes. One of them is I-66 outside the Beltway that's been around for a few years, and then a relatively new one, I-495 Northern Extension, that goes up to the Maryland line. So Miriam, on the next slide, will show some projects. And so you can see what we're putting some of that towards. And so the thing about this is any toll money has to go to the benefit of the toll payers. And so it has to be used in that corridor in order to ease congestion. And so, we're very appreciative to have these funds to put towards that mission. And so on I-95, we help fund some commuter routes through Fairfax County, Fairfax Connector, and through OmniRide, and those are full. With some of the return to work orders and other things, when DC, that's been a real beneficial service, and it's staying very busy. And then outside the Beltway funding, is helping us to fund some capital and operating as well, that is going to really ease congestion over time. If you visited or been to Northern Virginia, you've seen some of this, and you may have helped pay for some of these things if you use a toll lane. So you can see where that's going. And of course, Northern Extension, same thing. We've helped fund some operating funds for the Fairfax Connector Express service. All right, Miriam, next slide. And also, sort of in the Northern Virginia area, and in the spirit of easing congestion on some of the area's roadways, we work with the Virginia Railway Express, the commuter service. And so they're such a unique service that we have worked with them in order to provide them an allocation that they can use for operating and capital that can be they can sort of be sort of stable, and they don't, they're not forced to basically apply through other programs at this point. But we do work with them to use that allocation and basically look at some of their metrics and their annual budget in order to assess how things are going. So, but it's been a great partnership, and so they continue to grow and have extremely ambitious plans that we look forward to working with them on to continue. So we hope this funding helps to help move that stuff forward. Miriam, I think the last slide for my part is, of course, WMATA as well, which again, around, we help to fund, what they're doing in Virginia and around the DMV, because again, that's, with Northern Virginia being, such an economic engine of the Commonwealth. And as one of our CTB members also often says, with the DC being our nation's capital, we want it to be something that we can certainly point to as a point of pride. So we're happy to work with WMATA in many different ways. As you can see, we send a significant portion of our Commonwealth Mass Transit Fund, which will be $258 million this year, for Northern Virginia Transportation Commission to work with WMATA in providing service. And we also help them with capital through the $50 million for the PRIA, and then also through $154.5 million that they get through regional funds, which doesn't go through DRPT, but just shows the investment that area is making in its own transit. So, Miriam, I think that may be it for me, but I appreciate everybody's attention, and we'll turn it over to Rail to Emily. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Emily Stock. Thank you very much, Zach. I am the Chief of Rail Transportation for DRPT, and I'm going to talk about our rail program. This slide shows how we optimize our program investments for the 6-year improvement program, and gives a snapshot of the recommendations for fiscal year 2027, which totals over $19 million. And those recommendations come in 3 categories for the rail division. The top bar shows that we are recommending projects totaling $6.8 million through our freight grant program. And the source for this program is the Commonwealth Rail Fund. The freight program is geared toward projects that offer network capacity expansion for Virginia's rail network, freight rail network. And we require a benefit cost analysis for applicants to this program, as well as 30% design. So we like to see projects coming into this program that already have this 30% design covered, so that they are that they're ready to proceed with final design and construction in the near future. And the funding for this program comes out of the Commonwealth Rail Fund. And the middle bar shows that we're recommending projects totaling over $11 million, $11.7 million through the Rail Preservation Grant Program. This program tends to be oversubscribed, and I'm hearing a little bit of feedback. If you all don't mind turning your microphones off. Let's see, this program tends to be oversubscribed, but we're fortunate to be able to transfer up to 50% of the Commonwealth Rail Fund per year for this program. So you'll see that in purple. So for this year, we've transferred the maximum amount for FY2027 in order to fund those projects. And the third bar is devoted to rail planning, and this funding is used for the statewide rail plan, and we're in the midst of updating our statewide rail plan right now for federal grant match. So the rail team researches federal grants that we think that localities and other entities within Virginia may be able to take advantage of in the rail space. And we work with mostly localities, sometimes MPOs, to help them through technical assistance apply for federal grants for rail projects, and then offer a grant match. And a lot of those tend to be in the rail crossing space at this time, because there's some new grant programs that are devoted to that. And so that's something that we've gotten into lately. And often with a statewide rail plan, which we do every 4 years, there are spin-off planning projects that come along as part of that. And so that's part of what the statewide rail planning line item is for. And I forgot to mention earlier, a description of the rail preservation program. So that program is devoted to state of good repair projects for short line railroads. And for those of you all who are not familiar with short line railroads, those are railroads that provide last mile connections for Virginia businesses. So you all may be familiar that CSX and Norfolk Southern are our big Class 1 railroads in Virginia, and we have 9 short line railroads throughout the Commonwealth that provide critical service and consistently invest in their infrastructure. And so we help them do that by offering this program. And 30% match is required for each one of those projects through the rail preservation program. We can move on to the next slide. So this slide shows all of the projects that are new to the 6-year improvement program for FY27. And so all those projects are listed here, and I'll go through them with you to give you an idea of the types of projects that we fund through each program. And but real quick, why do we do it? Why do we invest in freight rail in Virginia? And it's really because it's cleaner and safer and cheaper. For every truck that we take off the highway. Let's see, every truck that we take off the highway is about 3.4 rail cars. And so it is something that that takes less wear and tear on our highways. So we end up saving about $85 million per year in pavement maintenance when we help to divert trucks to rail every year. And of course, it is a safer mode of transportation. So that's another reason we invest in it. So hub scrap metal is the first project listed here. That is through the freight program. Again, that's adding capacity to the rail system, and it's in Frederick County, right outside of Winchester. And this project is to expand an on-site rail yard there. And the benefit is that 23,000 trucks will be diverted from Virginia highways annually. The next project is the Shenandoah Valley Railroad's Rail Preservation Project. It's a track and roadbed upgrade project in Augusta and Rockingham counties. And the benefit of this project is that their track to track standard is preserved, so that they can carry the weight and deal with the speeds of trains that they need to deliver service in that area. And the third project is also a rail preservation project for the Norfolk Portsmouth Beltline that is in Hampton Roads and goes through Portsmouth and Norfolk and a little bit of Chesapeake. And that is a programmatic bridge, rail, and tie upgrade project. And of course, that preserves the critical infrastructure for that railroad. On the right-hand side of the slide, we have Buckingham Branch Railroad. They have quite a few projects. They have 3 crossover projects throughout the middle of the state in Goshen, Charlottesville, and Doswell. And those projects will improve overall network fluidity for their network. And then they're also upgrading their Richmond and Allegheny division, specifically tied to bridges. So that is meant to maintain the 286,000 pound weight capacity between Richmond and Allegheny County. So that wraps up descriptions of the projects. This is the locations of the projects. You can see they're throughout the state. Hub Scrap Metal up in Winchester, actually Frederick County, just outside Winchester, the Shenandoah Valley Railroad and Buckingham Branch Railroad projects, and then of course NPBL in Hampton Roads. Next slide. So next steps. So this month, we are, by the end of the month, we're going to be incorporating changes to the 6-year improvement program based on the comments that we've gotten through the hearings. And we plan to finalize the 5-year capital budget for projects that aren't funded in the current 6-year improvement program. And then next month, we plan to present the final budget and the 6-year improvement program to the Commonwealth Transportation Board, and they'll be voting on that and adopting it in July. So that ends our presentation. Now it's time for public comment. And Andy, I believe I'm turning this section over to you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Emily.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody, for the presentation. So before we get started, just how we're going to handle the public comment. We ask that you raise your hand, and if you look across the top of your screen, you will see the raise button with a hand. Just press that button. My colleague, Jordan Chapman, is keeping an eye on the list of attendees. She will recognize you by stating your name, and then you will left click the mic in the top right-hand corner to unmute yourself. We ask that you please keep your comments to 3 minutes. The Virginia public hearing process does require us only to hear comments, so we're not taking any questions at this time. If you do have any questions, feel free to send us an email, and I will share that email before we sign off for today. So Jordan, who do we have that would like to speak?
The first person we have is Andrea Bailey.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrea Bailey, and I'm currently serving as the chair of the 2026 Virginia Rail Express Operations Board, as well as the supervisor for Prince William County Potomac District. I'm here today just to share my deep, deep appreciation for DRPT's commitment to advancing rail and public transit throughout Virginia. VRE is especially appreciative of the Commonwealth's Transportation Board's commitment of $20 million in FY2027 towards VRE's LaFlante Station and its 4th track, as well as the Broad Run project, totaling $4 million over the life of the project. Completion of these projects will help ensure Virginia's progress towards transforming rail infrastructure towards that doesn't stop the Commonwealth's border but connects these improvements with our region's busiest hubs for passenger rail. Virginia has made a historic multi-billion-dollar investment in transforming rail in Virginia initiatives. Proudly, VRE is matching this commitment to reshape passenger rail by investing in the assets and infrastructure needed to significantly expand service by 2030. Central and Northern Virginia commuters understand the tremendous value VRE brings to our communities. On an average of weekday, roughly 10,000 trips are taken on VRE, with an average of trip lengthening 30 miles and some going over 60 miles. With this current service, VRE can carry the equivalent of an entire lane of rush hour traffic on I-95. The reliable connection VRE provides to major job and activity centers allows residents to maintain employment while seeking more affordable housing and a lower cost of living, opening opportunities for residents and localities. With gas prices at its highest, of course, in the recent history, a little relief from highway congestion and city gridlock, both residents and businesses are frequently turning to rail for their travel and shipping needs. Comparing these investments to VRE with the enormous cost of adding even a single lane to I-95, that lane would require enormous construction and maintenance costs and yet provide only limited and short-lived congestion relief. That is why DRPT's continued advocacy for investments in rail within the 6-year improvement program is so critical. An efficient, safe, and reliable rail system like VRE delivers long-term benefits to the communities we serve and to the entire Commonwealth. And so again, I thank you for your partnership and for recognizing the essential role that VRE plays in Virginia transportation's future. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bailey, for joining us and taking the time out of your schedule. We appreciate it. Jordan, who do we have next?
Where?
Yes, hi, I'm Charles Ware. I'm a Richmond resident and a lifelong rail fan and world traveler who has been on railroads in many Western European countries. I'm kind of astonished by the fact that here in the United States we have basically third world service. My wife and I were bumped off an air flight to New York from Richmond and decided to go by rail. And I found that the rail, Amtrak speed from Richmond to Washington was 34 miles an hour. And you might recall that in mid-1930s, RF&P steam locomotives averaged 60 miles an hour on that essentially the same run. Now, I see that the rail transit agency has invested a substantial amount in making an improvement on a bridge crossing the Potomac River, the cost of which is about $1 billion. And my comment is that in essence, although I support, of course, the improvements that would be necessary to bring electrified high-speed rail between Richmond to Washington using public dollars, it appears to me that this grant of whatever the state has put in to this bridge project is essentially a subsidization of one of the major rail companies in the United States that are principally owned by either, in one case, Burlington Northern Santa Fe, by one individual really who controls the railroad. That's Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway. But even of the other firms that are basically owned by private equity investors, the public money goes into the pockets of billionaires. And I'm not really sure I see that the public is getting an adequate return. So I'm suggesting, as a comment, that your agency demand a type of stock ownership in the rail companies that are benefiting through public investments. In other words, there should be public board members in these rail firms, and there should be a degree of public control. And that's especially true where the private equity interests have been steadily draining money out of the rail systems. And that's very evident by the number of derailments that you see on the Norfolk Southern system and also on the CSX system. They've had a major derailment into the James River within the city within the past several years. And there was another one just east of the city and towards the coast as they're hauling coal, which may not be something that's in the public interest really. But anyway, you have investors that are sucking money out, not maintaining the rail infrastructure. You can look at the former Beltline bridge in Richmond, Virginia over the James River that was formerly owned and operated by Atlantic Coastline. And you can see that it's deteriorating badly. And the railroad has put nothing into that bridge probably for, I don't know, 40 years. And so if it gets to the point where it requires a replacement, they're probably going to ask the state to step in and subsidize a investor-owned corporation. Frankly, I think that is socialism for the rich, and it's something that I find really abhorrent. And we're not really getting much closer to having high-speed rail between Richmond and Washington, which I think should be a principal goal of this state. For it would benefit both the Richmond region, but especially the Richmond region and area south financially, and would be worth a substantial public investment. And thank you.
All right, Jordan, who do we have up next?
Joey Simone.
Good afternoon. I am a resident of Norfolk, and although I am quite pleased already with how connected our local system, Hampton Roads Transit, is, I think that the light rail system should be expanded. I know I've talked their ear off, but maybe they could just use help from state and federal governments. I think that the peninsula should have a good light rail system since most of their city is along the coast. I think that all 7 of the cities should have good rail connections between each other. I was really excited when I heard that they were drilling to expand the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, but then all the excitement left my sails when it turns out that they're just adding 1 more lane to the road. When I asked them about it, they said, well, it's over capacity for cars, but if we were to put in rail, it would be under capacity, which I think is contradictory. Do people want to cross or not? I think that we have Hampton Roads is the largest metropolitan area in Virginia. We got 1 million people, and the density does exist in certain places, and the light rail would be great for connecting dense areas to dense areas better than express buses that just get stuck in traffic. Furthermore, night and weekend VRE service and good regional rail connections to connect the cities in Virginia. It shouldn't be necessary for taking an Amtrak from here to, say, Danville, to go all the way to DC to transfer to get onto the western bound lines. It should be at least like a Richmond transfer, or possibly even direct, just complete that triangle. I know that the geography makes that more difficult. I am not a railroad planner. I just a citizen who's excited about rail and bearish on, the personal automobile / gasoline economy. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Jordan, who do we have next?
Kendall Toss.
Mr. Tawes?
Hello, hi. So I have a couple of questions. One is regarding the Virginia Breeze, the new route. I love that there's a cross-state route now, but I happen to think that you seem to make it around the gap quite early if you're leaving from Virginia Beach, and on top of which, I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity for people that want to do like day trips between like Charlottesville and Richmond. Like right now, they arrive at the exact same time, basically meaning that you have to stay the night if you're wanting to use that. Like I know people that have disabilities that can't drive to Richmond, and that would be a great benefit to them. But unfortunately, they would have to basically get a room in a hotel overnight. Now, another question I have, and again, it would be regarding actually the acquisition of buses. I noticed that the revenue vehicle replacement, 65% of the budget of the 101 million, basically 65 million is going to acquiring new transit vehicles. So I looked up the actual prices that were quoted. Like, I mean, this is slightly outdated 2025 numbers, but like a 35-inch diesel's $498,000, and a 35-inch electric bus from Gillig is $950,000. And I compared that when you compare that to like what they're charging for buses in Europe, like a Mercedes-Benz e-Cetro, which is a fully electric bus, like Spain's only paying $300,000 per electric bus for their electric buses. Now I know the main reason why we are buying Gilligs is because of the Buy America, rules under the FTA. We basically pick Gillig because they're one of the cheaper options. But it's coming to a point where, considering the massive cost difference, like again, and also the real risk of like big cuts in federal funding, that we might start considering maybe looking at even international vendors for buses, considering this large price gap. Furthermore, personally, I've ridden on some of the new Gilligs that I live in Charlottesville. The new Gilligs that Charlottesville got, and the build quality is quite poor. Specifically, when I brought up a decibel reader, I was getting at one point a peak of 110 decibels, which was insanely loud for inside of a bus. It did get better after they did a repair, but it's louder and more rattly than the 10-year-old buses they're supposedly they're supposed to be replacing. So anyway, that's my comments on the two things. Schedule of the Virginia Breeze being potentially a little better for day trips, and on the new route, and vehicle acquisition. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Jordan, who do we have up next?
Steve Grammer.
Mr. Grammer, floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Steve Grammer, and I'm a disability advocate. You must improve the budget for the people in the disability community, along with improving same-day transportation.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your comments. Jordan, who do we have up next?
James Snyder.
All right, Mr. Snyder, the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is James Snyder. I live in Alexandria, but also have a house here in Charlottesville where I'm speaking from. And I want to bring to your attention a gap between the planning for the Charlottesville passenger rail improvement, which is on your long-range Commonwealth Corridor plan, but plans have not been developed for it. So when talking with VRPA, they have not done any planning for it. Right now in Charlottesville, there are blank vacant sites directly adjacent to the right-of-way that CSX, that VPRA now owns. It has Buckingham Branch as well, in the Fifeville neighborhood, where 8 and 11-story student housing projects are being approved by right, and these have no setbacks. The difficulty with this is the safety issue that we have two 5th Street and 7th Street, which are very close together, which are very steep and very poor at-grade crossings. We'll have 200-car freight trains come through here, CSX coming back and forth. Imagine the student housing project built right on that property line, and something goes wrong, and the train goes into that housing. There's no provision, no way to get to that from the fire department, et cetera. The parking lot for the Amtrak station is also owned privately. It's been zoned for up to 11 stories by right. The city has not done very much outreach, and there's no public hearings on these things. The difficulty is that by the time you all get around to planning for this, or looking at what do we need to do to make sure we can do a station here, it may be too late. There was approval last week by the Board of Architecture Review to put in something called the MARC project, which is one of these I'm talking about. Presently, it's a vacant wooded site in the Fifeville neighborhood. There's been a tremendous amount of concern expressed by the neighborhoods. But from what I can tell, talking to VRPA earlier this year, this station is not on your planning yet. And so you may be unable to do this station. And that would be tragic, because for the next 50 years, we're going to have to go up to Alexandria and back, where I live, to get to Richmond. This is a critical piece of the Commonwealth Corridor. And we need someone to be looking at it now to find a way to create and reserve right-of-way and safety issues along this critical juncture, if you will, for east-west and north-south traffic. I'm trying to bring this to people's attention, and I've talked to VRPA. Folks are well-intentioned, but nobody's done any planning for it. We bring it up to city council. They listen, but they're not doing anything. This is really important because this is going to dictate how things go for the next 50 years if you guys don't get ahead of this. Not to mention that the tracks themselves, it's very narrow. I think you want to put in another passenger line from Charlottesville to Dillwyn to get to Richmond so we can get there in an hour and not have to go up to Alexandria and back. So this is one of these critical things that I think unfortunately may be falling between the cracks of the way you guys are organized. So I would love to know if there's any, right now I can hear the trains coming by. My dog barks a lot when the trains come by. This is not only a dangerous situation, but it needs to be an opportunity to make the Charlottesville station happen. And unfortunately, the zoning that's been put in place and the lack of public hearings, literally, and notice are going to make it very hard to get anything done if you guys don't step in really quickly and get involved in this. It doesn't seem to be in anybody's court at the moment. And that's my concern. My background, I spent 30 years as a city planner in Arlington, and the last 14 years as a planner and director of planning and economic development in the city of Falls Church, where we worked to upgrade the development near the West Falls Church Metro Station. I happened to sit in last week on the Commission for Fine Arts, who was looking at the pedestrian bridge that's going across from Washington, D.C. to the North Tract in Arlington. What are the shape of those columns? A lot of attention being paid to that. This stuff takes a lot of time. You guys are doing a great job. I'm just really worried that this piece of the puzzle may get beyond you. And I don't know how to do anything other than try to sound the alarm and let people know this is really important. So I wanted to let you all know if you can, the neighborhoods would love to get some help on this. Literally, these are gigantic projects that are permitted by right under the zoning the city has put in place. They're for student housing, and they're not for a hotel to help serve customers coming in to this regional transit hub. This is probably the most important piece of ground in all of Charlottesville because it is its connection regionally to other jurisdictions. It's going to save lots of time, many fewer cars coming here if we can get that train station to work. So
all right, well, thanks, sir.
Please help us and let us know how we
much.
can let you know about this problem, and please do something about it. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments this evening. Jordan, do we have anyone else in the queue to provide comment?
At the moment, we do not.
All right, well, I guess last call. Again, if you are interested in providing comment, we are here and willing to listen. So please raise your hand. Again, the buttons across the top of the screen. And if you do that, we will unmute you and allow you to speak for 3 minutes. Okay, going once, going twice. I will, before I turn it back over to Director Zimmerman, just a reminder of the upcoming DRPT calendar. This coming Monday, June 1st, we will be having another public meeting regarding the Virginia statewide rail plan. You can go to drpt.virginia.gov to sign up for that event. And also, if you were not comfortable speaking publicly, you can also provide written comment to the SIP, and you can email that to drptpr@drpt.virginia.gov. And we've also received an inquiry. We will be sharing the slide deck via email to all the attendees this evening. So again, thank you, everybody. I will turn it back over to Director Zimmerman.
Great. Thanks, Andy. Yes, just echoing again our appreciation for those of you who joined us tonight and for each of you who provided comment. We do hear the comments and can, appreciate the opportunity to be in dialogue as well if there's additional follow-up that you would like to do with that. but it's always really, really helpful to hear from folks across the Commonwealth, whether you are a citizen, a rider, an elected official, a planner. All of that is really great and helpful. And it reminds me one of the things the secretary has been talking about as we've been going around the state the last few weeks. The Commonwealth Transportation Board is planning with the secretary to restart the fall town halls that had happened but hadn't for the past few years. But he's excited to restart those. So we will make sure that everyone who attends today also gets an opportunity to hear about those when they happen in the fall. We don't have dates for those yet. But while this is a formal process where we're sharing information and you're providing comments and we can't really engage too much back and forth, those town halls really are meant to be that kind of open exchange. And it's great to have people who care about rail and who care about transit show up at those town halls. VDOT helps to organize them and coordinate them, but we at DRPT are at the table, as is the secretary, who really is looking at the multimodal options and needs across the state. So it's a great opportunity to meet with them as well, and make your voices and concerns shared. The last thing I just wanted to kind of ping for folks as well, please check out our DRPT website. We do have on the data portal side of things, there's a lot of information, some of which speaks to some of the issues that folks raised tonight. So I encourage you to check that out. We had a lot of good rail discussion as well. And as Andy mentioned, there will be another public hearing next Monday, June 1st, to talk about the statewide rail planning effort. Also, folks mentioned the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority, VPRA. They have a lot of information on some of those construction projects that are underway that they are leading. So with that, again, I just want to thank everyone for your time tonight. Wish you a lovely rest of your evening and a safe week ahead of you as we go into the summer. Hoping wherever you are, you're safe as a transit rider, as a road user, as a bicyclist, a pedestrian, however you may be getting around. We're really looking forward to connecting all of us across the Commonwealth. So thanks again, everyone. Take care.